Okay, so my name's Rasty, a graffiti and tattoo artist from Johannesburg, South Africa. I've been painting graffiti for about 23 years now, and tattooing for about 12, 13 years. Yeah, just been kind of keeping active in graffiti over that time. I have my studio here in Braamfontein, 1933 Classic Tattoos. It's where we tattoo from, and we also run a graffiti store and gallery space. I've got a wife and kids. I'm a family man. I've been married for 7 years, and I've got 2 baby girls. I say baby girls, they're 5 and 3 now. Yeah, man, and it's like it's a joy, you know. Anyone that's in that experienced parenthood will understand what I'm talking about. It's a crazy experience. It's a joy, and it's the heaviest challenge, you know, at the same time. So, yeah, trying to balance family life and a professional career as a tattoo artist. It's demanding, but it's very rewarding on both sides, you know. So it's just trying to find make the time, you know, so you can give the clients the time that they deserve. You know, they wait a long time for me. They pay good money, you know, so they deserve, you know, 100% of my efforts and my time when they're paying for it. So yeah, it's difficult to kind of do that and do the prep work, you know, that needs to be done, and still find time for family. I used to work 6 days a week, and I used to often do 2 clients a day and work late into the evenings every day. Since my kids were born, I've kind of slowed down the pace a bit. So now I'm kind of mostly doing single clients a day, full day sessions, and only doing Monday to Friday. So that allows me at least to be home in the evenings for when it's you know, dinner time and bedtime. And then after that's kind of when once they're sleeping, then I get on the design work for the next day, you know. So the kind of days split into 2, the day shift and the night shift. So it's just, yeah, it's just finding a balance, you know. Most of the work that I do is very custom, original designs and stuff. So it does require a lot of kind of time in those evenings to plan for the next day. I think a lot of people don't really realize what goes into that kind of design element and how much time we spend on that. So yeah, it's just about, yeah, kind of giving everyone the time they deserve. And it's a struggle, but you know, like I say, it's rewarding on both sides. So how I got into tattooing was kind of essentially through graffiti. Like I say, I've been doing graffiti for the longest time, longer than I've been tattooing. So I'd been painting graffiti for a long time, and I'd painted a couple of tattoo shops. You know, guys want cool murals in the tattoo shops. So I'd painted those, and I'd always been intrigued by tattoos since a kid. It always fascinated me, you know. But it was such a foreign concept as well, because it was only a very certain type of person that got tattooed, or you know, it wasn't a common thing. You know, I remember walking into the tattoo studio in Rocky Street in the late 90s, and it was a very different experience to what you're kind of used to now, you know, walking into tattoo shops. It was a very inaccessible kind of art form, and you didn't know much about it. So like I said, it intrigued me, but it was never even something I considered much, you know, as a medium for art, you know. So I'd been doing graffiti for many years, and like I say, started painting graffiti shops, tattoo studios, and through that, also met graffiti guys from Cape Town that had made the change over to tattooing, and it kind of just opened doors, and eventually through knowing the right people and stuff, I got introduced to someone that was willing to apprentice me and teach me the ins and outs of tattooing. Graffiti or tattooing, one must die. You see, I mean, that is a tricky question because first, first, first thing would to be, I mean, graffiti is my first love, you know, when it comes to art. It's what, like I say, opened all the doors for me. So I would, if I had to choose between graffiti and tattooing, I would choose graffiti when it came to passion. But if it comes to paying bills and providing for my family, then it has to be tattooing. So it's kind of that, you know, there's variables, you know. Like I say, passion-wise, I'd take graffiti, or painting, you know, painting, and then tattooing would be a close second. But if it means survival, then tattooing wins hands down. I was invited 3-4 years ago to design a 2-rand coin for the SA Mint. It was a project for the 25 years of democracy, so from '94 to 2019. So in 2018, the SA Mint approached a group of young artists that they had highlighted through many aspects. And so I was actually the only graffiti artist involved in it. Then there were other artists that work in other mediums. And we were all presented with the project and the opportunity to propose a design. So we had to design it, and you were commissioned to design it, but it wasn't a guarantee that your design would be selected and used on a coin. So what they'd given to us was the brief, and the brief was around the human rights. They'd done a kind of census with the youth over projects, and from that selected the human rights from our constitution that were the most relevant to the youth, that they'd kind of done with their survey, kind of spoken to with their surveys. So there was a handful of them, and we were all designated a human right and a coin to design it for. So some people got a 5-rand coin, others 2-rand coins, and then there were collectors ones as well. So the human right, the constitutional right that I was given was the right to freedom of movement and residence in South Africa, which basically states that as a South African resident, you are free to move around the country as you will, to reside anywhere within the country as you want. You're also free to leave the country, having a passport. You're free to leave the country and come back at any point. So, and that's kind of one of the most crucial human rights we have, right? You know, the idea of being able to have a place that is home. You know, so I really enjoyed having that as my brief. So for me, it was trying to find things that represented that freedom of movement, residence, and just being able to move, you know. So through a whole design process, I ended up selecting a bird, the South African, the weaver bird, you know, the one that we all know that's everywhere, that weaves those round nests, you know. And they're spread throughout the country, you know, anywhere you go, you'll see those nests, you know. So for me, it represented the fact that they're a very South African bird. They're very common, so that represented South Africa. The fact that they fly is obviously the idea of freedom of movement, and the fact that they nest and their nests are so iconic is kind of refers to residence. So that was what encompassed that. And then the bird in the picture is holding a key in its hand. So it's in flight, but it's holding a key. And the key refers to your passport, essentially, you know, the right to be able to come and go as you please from South Africa, to travel abroad, to come home, and always be free to do that, you know. And then, so that was the main element of the 2-rand coin, and then I wanted to bring some other elements into it that spoke of South Africa and of the whole idea of moving and international and local. So as a local representation, there's a little minibus taxi, which is iconic, you know, to South Africa. Love him or hate him, it's part of South Africa. It's a huge part of what keeps this country going, you know. So for me, it was crucial to have that represented in there. So there's a tiny little minibus taxi in there with a bit of a cityscape background, and then above that there's a a kind of passenger plane flying, which obviously then represents leaving and coming back, flying abroad. So this is the design I came up with. There was a bit of back and forth with the SA Mint and their creative team, and eventually we submitted our designs. And then it goes through a whole process where it's not just a small select bunch of people that choose it. It goes through all these kind of committees and people that decide on, that review all the proposed designs, and then it goes then to government and gets approved there. So it's a whole process, and that's why you're not guaranteed that your design would get used. So a couple of months went by, and eventually, you kind of almost forget about it. And then they got back to me and said the good news that my coin had been selected. So that's like been one of the most kind of rewarding and the biggest honor to kind of be part of, like as a graffiti guy, where it's about like getting up as much as you can, getting your work out to the public as much as you can. I mean, nothing kind of beats getting it on a 2 rand coin that's going to be passed hand to hand and used in that way, So it's, definitely the most momentous kind of project I've been involved in, and I kind of cherish it, dearly. And the first time I kind of had that, got the change at a shop and I saw that coin like kind of sparkle, and I flipped it over and it was my coin. It was like the most amazing feeling ever. So like I say, it's something that, will live on as well, because I still find like the coins from the inauguration, from the early 90s, from 94, I still find those 2 rand coins, and now mine is one, 25 years later. So in 25 years, providing we're still using cash money, hopefully someone will still pop up in circulation, so it's kind of got this life that could live on, So unfortunately, the health department is not involved at all in the tattoo industry, as far as I know. Unlike every other country in the world, perhaps, or at least kind of more advanced countries in that kind of realm, where maybe tattooing has a longer history and has been around for a lot longer in the aspect that we understand it now. As long as I've been tattooing, it was always an issue. The guy Alex that apprenticed me, he was at one stage even trying to set up to work with the health department to initiate a standard for tattoo shops in terms of health and sanitization and that kind of thing. And their reply was essentially that you do it and we'll back you up, which is no guarantee. I mean, it should be their job essentially. Same like with restaurants. They're supposed to go in at restaurants, and I believe they do, but they're supposed to go in and check that everything is clean and operating hygienically. Unfortunately, in the tattoo industry, they don't do that. I know in other parts of the world, you cannot operate until you've gotten sign-off from the health department. They have to come and do an inspection. Once you've set up your shop, you have to have everything, you can obviously download or find out what the requirements are. Once you've got all of that in place, then you can call them to come do a site inspection, and they give you sign-off that you're keen to operate, and then you can operate. That doesn't happen here. Anyone can operate in tattoo. Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing, is tattooing's at the point now where it's like, it's huge. It's like, it's global, and it's not just subculture or counterculture now. It's like mainstream culture, and in that comes all the dirty stuff as well, where it gets interpreted completely wrong. People's motivations are completely wrong, to a large extent. So you're going to have, people that are passionate about it and are dedicated to it, and they're going to follow the process, and they're going to find their way through tattooing, and they're going to kind of make it far, and they can benefit from the mainstream kind of accessibility of tattooing now, because they can become really kind of well-known artists, and they can become collected artists and stuff. But at the same time, you've now got these, through the TV shows and all of this, you've got these superstar tattoo artists, So now we're moving into the realm of celebrity, where it's not about what the person does so much anymore, but more just about mimicking what they do, or having their lifestyle rather than putting in the hard work that they had to put in to get to that lifestyle. And that's where there's a disconnect now, because kids in like the hoods and all over the place, you know, are seeing that like these guys have made it, you know, they're stars, you know, same like you would look at an MC or an actor or something, you know, because now you're on TV, there's this element of stardom. And you know, you see some of these tattoo artists, it's very good, very talented tattoo artists, and they're living their life. They got flashy cars, you know, they're all over the world, you know, so it is a desirable lifestyle, you know. But what you don't see is the 20 years that these guys have been putting in to get to that point, you know what I mean? You don't see that they apprenticed for years and got treated like a grommet and, you know, had to pay their dues and, you know, worked hard and had the ups and downs, learned the hard lessons. You don't see any of that shit. And you just assume that they just started tattooing. And now we're at this point, yeah, where it's like so popular that you've got knockoffs of equipment, and it's really accessible in that way that you can get online. Like I say, you can get on Instagram and there's Alibaba advertising tattoo machines, you know. You can go to China Mall down the road and get a full setup. You can be tattooing today, you know. And like on those, you know, Saki tattoos, it's like you see people every single day have a setup that they've taken out of the box and now they're tattooing their mate, you know. And that's going to happen. It's like, it's inevitable, you know. It's like with it being out of the subculture and in the mainstream world, that's where it's going to go, you know. And unfortunately, yeah, you've got these guys now who get into tattooing because they want to make lots of money, they want to be superstars, they want to travel the world, you know, and they don't think about what it takes to get there, you know. It's like, so they get the equipment from who knows where, anyway, and then they just start tattooing. And the problem is that for a lot of people, they don't give a shit at what the tattoo looks like. The fact that they got a tattoo is sick, you know what I mean? It's like, I look tatted, yo, it doesn't matter what it looks like. So they don't care that homie's like fucking them up with the ink and the needles and reusing shit. And that's the thing, is like, when I apprenticed, like before I even got to touch a tattoo machine, it was the ins and outs. It was like mopping the floor, it was cleaning. Then we still cleaned grips, we still made needles, you know, on your own. You didn't buy pre-made needles, you didn't have cartridge, you didn't have any, you know, it was grips and tips. You were scrubbing that shit every single day. You were making needles, you were cleaning the shop every day, you were setting up for the guy that was teaching you, you were breaking down for the guy that was teaching you. And for the first few months, that's all you did, because that had to be drilled into you so that you knew it and you did it out of habit, you know. Left hand being a dirty hand, right hand being a clean hand. That's shit that you won't just figure out on your own, you know what I mean? It's not graphic design. You can't just go and fucking, you know, buy the program and do it, you know. Like, you're gonna struggle. But at least when you're struggling on a graphic design program, the only thing you're fucking up is your storage space, you know. In tattooing, you're fucking someone's skin up, you know. So there's no room for error, you know. So that is why an apprenticeship is very important. That is why apprenticing with someone that is a knowledgeable person in tattooing and has already paid his dues is important, you know what I mean? Because that's what's happening now, is someone's like, does an apprenticeship with someone for 3 months, and then they're like, cool, I'm like ready to open my own store now, you know what I mean? So, and then they open their own store, and then they're like, cool, I'm ready to take an apprentice now. But they don't even know how to tattoo, you know what I mean? They've been tattooing for 6 months to a year, and now they're teaching someone their substandard tattooing. And then the cycle repeats like that, you know? So, I mean, you've got backyard tattooers and stuff, and like I say, that's going to happen. You're going to have kids finding shit. I mean, there's a kid that comes here, you know, he's a street kid, and he comes and he tells me how he's made a rotary tattoo machine. So even without having access to the internet, the shit is out there, and people, where there's a will, there's a way. In prison, people manage to make tattoos, you know, and a whole style of tattooing grew out of that in California, you know, from prison tattoos. So it's not to say that something beautiful can't come out of it. And that's going to happen anyway. You're going to have people, like I say, doing hack jobs and shit. The problem is that there's also people with supposedly reputable shops, or on surface level, it looks like a good shop, you know. So you go in there and you think like, oh, well, you know, he's got a shop. It's clean, looks clean, you know. But you don't know what's going on in the back. You don't know what this guy's hygiene standards are. You don't know if he's had it drilled into him. So And the other thing is that, you know, if you come back to the kind of like health department being involved, you could, at the same, if you had enough money, you could set up a shop that passes those tests. Doesn't mean you know how to tattoo, you know what I mean? Anyone tomorrow can go and tick all the boxes, buy all the right equipment, expensive equipment, buy all the right inks, everything, set up a shop that that's clean and sterile. They can do all of that. And the government will come and sign off it and you're good to go. But you don't know how to tattoo. You just went and bought all the shit, you know? So it's like, who monitors that? Who monitors the education process? And should it be monitored? Or is it now, at the end of the day, up to the person that's getting tattooed to make the decision himself? So hygiene is like I said, it's like that's the first thing you should learn in tattooing. Like before anything, it's like, this is how a tattoo shop works. This is what happens in the morning. This is how you clean shit from the floor right up to the stations. You know, that is your basis, that's your foundation, you know what I mean? If you're not learning that first, everything else is gonna go wrong, you know what I mean? The reality is that we are dealing with people's skin, we are dealing with, you know, bodily fluids, and you are creating trauma on someone's skin that needs to be addressed in the way that you would any other wound, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's a large portion of doctors kind of learning to be a doctor, is how to how to treat wounds, how to clean wounds, how to, like, you know, sterilize things, you know, it's like, and we need to have that same approach in tattooing, because like I say, it's not just like sticking something on, it's like you are creating trauma. You need to know how to work that. You need to understand the idea of pathogens, the way things move from one thing to another, you know, how they can sit on longer on a cold surface. You know, there's so many cold surfaces over a tattoo shop. Things can survive on there over a longer period of time than you think, you know. Bacteria can build up. You've got stuff like staphylococcus, which is like something you don't see it, you know what I mean? It's like it could just be building up there in the crease of your bed because you haven't cleaned in that crease in your bed for 3 months, you know, and people have been sweating and the sweat's been dripping in there all the time, and this bacteria is just building, and then someone comes and puts their arm where you've been tattooing on there, and they picks up that bacteria, and next thing their arm is falling off. It's a reality. That shit can happen. People can get septicemia and end up in hospital and die, you know what I mean? It often happens after the tattoo process. There's a 50-50, you know what I mean? Like, you can take all the process here and make sure everything's clean, but if someone doesn't take care of it afterwards, it can also go horribly wrong. But that's why it's more important to know, like, when someone comes in here, they're like, this got sift. You're like, well, it's not here. I know for a fact it's not here. This place is clean. You will not find, you can come and test, you will not find that shit here, you know? So you need to know that in order to have the confidence to be able to say that if that were to unfortunately happen, you know? So, you know, like I say, I mean, the first thing that was drilled into me is like, dirty hand, clean hand, you know what I mean? When you're breaking down a station and shit, you need to know this hand has touched something contaminated, has touched the tissues, the fucking wrapper, the fucking thing that on the bed, you know? It's like, this hand must not touch anything clean, you know what I mean? Mustn't touch it. And then this one is only touching clean shit. It must not touch any of that. It's learning about how to work like that, you know? How to keep shit clean, how to clean surfaces. And that needs to be drilled into you. That's why I say the first few months of an apprenticeship, Stuart, who's my first apprentice, has started with me now. He's been with me 8 months. He only just did his first tattoo on himself a month ago. You know, he's been doing a little bit on practice skins, but up until now, he's just been cleaning the shop, cleaning up after me, setting up for me, and getting that shit drilled into him. So that when he is doing it, he's not umming and ahhing. And one day when he does have his own shop, and he brings someone and he knows how to give them that foundation, you know? So it's very important. That's a tough one. There's a few things, but I'm also more just thinking about the knock-on effect. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the time travel conundrum, you know. You can go back in time and change something, but you don't know, you know, like what it's going to change. The knock-on effect of that change is going to be, you know. So it's hard to say because, you know, I'm very content in my life. So if I were to change anything in the world, it might change my situation. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, man. I don't think I would change anything. Yeah.